Oh, Jesus Christ, it is cold as a motherfucker up there. Alright, just gonna pass through this. Alright, perfect. So, first of all, Happy New Year's. I know it's late. We'll talk about that later. But before we go and talk about the topic of today's video, I feel like we need a little bit of context. And don't worry, this is not going to take too long. And if you guys have played this particular game we're about to talk about soon, this is going to make a lot of sense. On May 24th, 2016, the world was introduced to Overwatch. It was a game that mixed and combined elements from other games like Team Fortress 2 and League of Legends, with the overall product being something that hadn't been done before at that level. And besides the game itself, there were other things that drew people in. The lore of the game had people invested alongside the cinematics that looked just as good as a Pixar movie. And then there were the characters who all had their own unique quirks that made them stand out. Of course, there's other reasons why people love the characters, but if I were to say the reason, this video would probably get taken down. If you know, you know. Wink, wink. As the years went on, Overwatch would continue to be successful, even to the point of having its own esports league. However, things started getting interesting when during BlizzCon 2019, Blizzard, developers behind Overwatch, would announce a sequel shocking everybody. But that shock would later be met with excitement when the big selling point of this sequel was revealed to be the popular PvE missions. More specifically, PvE missions with things like a skill tree and being able to give upgrades to the characters you could play as. But despite people's excitement for this, it would eventually turn into frustration when Overwatch 2 finally released. And to make a long story short, people were pissed when this game was released. Hell, people were pissed before and during the lead up to release, and it was all because of a series of events that made people less and less excited for what was to come. The first was that the game's PvP format was going from 6v6 to 5v5, effectively changing one of the core identities of the game as well as messing up the game's balance upon release. The second event was the fact that Overwatch 2 was going free to play. Now, the issue wasn't the fact that the game was going free to play. The issue was that to unlock the game's new heroes, you would have to grind out the battle pass just to unlock them. Yes, you heard me right, you had to unlock them via the battle pass. It would later get changed, but there was one more thing that happened that really pissed people off. When Overwatch 2 released, it didn't have the PvE mode due to the developers still working on it. And this is understandable since you want to make something that's good, memorable, and something that would satisfy the fans. However, during a live stream, they announced that the PvE mode, which was supposed to be the main selling point of the game and one that would have all these features, was effectively canceled. But that's not the only thing they did, as when the PvE mode eventually released, you had to pay $15 just to play them. And that's $15 for a PvE mode that plays just like the Overwatch archive missions, but with no skill tree or anything else that was promised before its release. Yeah, and you could bet your ass that people were like royally pissed about this. But why is all of this important, and what does it have to do with the topic of today's video? Well, to put it simply, people just weren't happy about the changes made to the game. But it wasn't like they could just jump ship onto another game, because when looking for alternatives to Overwatch, some of them weren't at the best spot at the time. Team Fortress 2 at the time was going through a bunch of bot problems. Paladins, according to the player base, is dead. Rainbow Six Siege as well. Rainbow Six Siege, and then there's Apex Legends and Valorant, with both having their own issues. However, on March 27, 2024, a game would be announced that at first was met with uncertainty, though as the months went on, that uncertainty turned into excitement, and on December 6, 2024, people were finally able to play Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals is a 6v6 hero shooter that could best be described as Overwatch, but with Marvel characters. But saying that isn't enough to describe just how refreshing this game is. Every part of it is oozing with passion, and the things you would normally see in games currently are toned down and aren't as obnoxious. Like, it feels good playing a multiplayer game, but the first thing you see is the game itself, not a big display that's basically saying, "Give me your money, bitch!" Oh, shit. Hell, if you want to see just how much passion Marvel Rivals gives off, you could go to their developer website and look at the dev diaries, where they go in detail on their process of making the game, from translating the core of each character to one of the 3 main roles of the game, to trying to replicate that feeling of being a superhero, and the amount of collateral damage around you that will make a small business owner want to cry. But the biggest surprise about this game is how popular it's gotten. Ever since its release, more and more people have been migrating to this game, and this also includes big streamers like Tim the Tatman and Ninja. Then there's the fact that this game managed to reach 20 million players within the first month of its release. If for the first time in what feels like a while, we have an alternative to Overwatch that's just as fun. It's funny though, because all of this could have gone to Concord, but no one was checking for that shit. you know what? I'm going to rescind that joke because I kind of feel bad for making it. Not at Sony, more towards the developers, because yeah, they did not deserve the shit that they were handed. Now, the reason why I brought everything up about Overwatch 2 is just to give you one of the reasons why this game has been so successful. That also includes this general feeling that there weren't a lot of alternatives prior to Marvel Rivals' release. I mean, there were alternatives, but again, most of them were going through it. Now, if I wanted to end this review quickly, I would just tell you to play the game. Simple as that. It's easily one of the best free-to-play games we've gotten in a minute. But I wanted to go a little deeper and maybe convince more people to play this as opposed to Overwatch 2. And if for some reason you decide, nah, I'm just gonna keep on playing this game, screw Marvel Rivals and so on and so forth, you might as well just start playing League of Legends at this point. Coming from someone who has played that game since 2014, you'll experience just as much bullshit, and at least they're transparent about it. Now, when it comes to Marvel Rivals, this gameplay is very similar to Overwatch. You have a 6v6 team setup, 3 roles that boils down to a tank, DPS, and support, and finally you have objective-based game modes to go through. But there are differences that sets the two apart. Some are big changes, while most of them are small. So for those who have maybe, never played a game like Overwatch before, or just in general never played Overwatch, then don't worry, because we're going to explain all of it. Just don't expect anything technical because I'm not an expert on games like this. Though before we start, let me get one thing out the way real quick. Besides one game mode in particular, Marvel Rivals is a team-based game. I wanted to put that out there for those who might be going into this game thinking that they're the main character. A lot of the mechanics and game modes are built around teamwork, which is especially the case for the two modes that y'all are probably going to be playing the most, Quick Match and Competitive. Quick Match is self-explanatory. You want to play something quick before heading off to work, then Quick Match is the game mode for you. But for those who want to flex their skills or maybe play this game on a higher level, there's Competitive. This mode has 9 ranks to climb through, with players starting out at Bronze 3. And by winning games, you'll gain points that eventually move you up a tier or a whole rank after collecting 100. And this goes on and on until you reach the highest rank in the game, Grandmaster. Now, during your rank journey, the first few ranks aren't too different, but when you make it into Diamond and above, you and the enemy team can ban 2 heroes from being played. It would have been cool to have this in other ranks as well, but there may be a reason for that, who knows. Other than that, Competitive, like most multiplayer games, is a ranked mode, which means you're either gonna have a good time or you're gonna end up dropping from gold all the way back down to bronze. Okay, wait, before we continue, that was an exaggeration. But if you have played League of Legends before, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, yeah. But unlikely, Marvel Rivals does have something in place so that you don't fall too badly after a loss. After losing a set amount of games, you'll unlock this thing known as a Chrono Shield. It prevents you from losing points after losing a match, and once it's used, it has to be recharged again by, well, losing more matches. And to be honest with you, this shit right here, easily one of the best things you can add to a ranked mode. For my time doing ranked in this game, the Chrono Shield has stopped me so many times from crashing out, especially when I end up going on a losing streak. While it's still annoying to lose points, you at least aren't losing a lot like in other games like League of Legends. I know this is like maybe the second or third time I mentioned it, but if you played ranked in that game, you know the struggle. Now, while these two modes offer different experiences, the one thing they have in common is the objective-based game modes. Actually, that might not be the best way to describe it, but fuck it, I couldn't think of anything else to call it. Quick Match and Competitive both have 3 objective-based game modes to go through, and while they're largely the same between each mode, Competitive adds a couple more stipulations to them, making those game modes a little more tense. The first game mode you'll come across is Convoy. Players are split between 2 teams being offense and defense. If you're on offense, the goal is to push an object from point A to B within the time limit, and by going through checkpoints, it'll add more time to the limit. And if you're on defense, the goal is to simply stop the offense from pushing the object any further. Pretty easy, right? And for the most part, it is. However, in Competitive, there's more to it. In Competitive, you have multiple rounds where at the end of each round, the teams will switch sides. And while the goal of the game remains the same, there's no 2 ways to win. You either win by having the most points, which can be gained by passing through checkpoints, or you'll win based on who pushed the object the furthest, depending on where the last team ended up after the round was over. The second game mode is Domination. In this mode, you and the other team are trying to hold down a single point until it reaches 100%. While on the point, if the opposing team gets on it, it'll be contested until one of the two teams are off of it, and whichever team fails to meter to 100% wins. But unlike Convoy, Domination has 3 rounds in total, with the winner being decided on best 2 out of 3. It's also the only game mode that plays the same between Quick Match and Competitive. Finally, there's the last game mode, Convergence. This mode is a mixture of the last 2 modes I just mentioned, with there being 2 parts to it. Teams are still split between offense and defense, and depending on which side you're on, you're either spending the first half of this mode trying to take point, or you're trying to defend it. And if the opposing side manages to fill all 3 ticks, the game will transition into the second half that plays exactly like Convoy. However, there's only 1 checkpoint as opposed to 2, and best believe that made things a lot more tense. And just like how it is with Convoy, playing Convergence and Competitive adds new things to go through. Luckily, the additions are the same as they are in Convoy, but if you don't make it to the second half, the winner would be decided based on which team had the most ticks filled. These game modes, for the most part, are fun, and you would be surprised at just how tense some of them could be. For a game mode as simple as Domination, you would never expect to feel so anxious when you're on point. You can make the argument that this also applies to Convoy and Convergence, but to me, I don't feel anxious when playing them. When I play Domination though, it feels like I'm in a minefield. One wrong step and I'm getting jumped by the entire team. But besides Quick Match and Competitive, this game has other modes that offer different experiences. You want to play a good old game of Team Deathmatch? You got Conquest. You want to try to get good as a particular hero but you don't want to play against other players? Practice versus AI got you back. And if you want to learn a hero or you're just really new to the game, you can either go to the practice range or play through 1 out of the 4 tutorial modes to learn the game. At the time of me writing this script, there's 2 game modes available, Doom Match and Clash of Dancing Lions. Doom Match is basically free-for-all with a side of getting jumped. And then there's Clash of Dancing Lions, which to be honest, I don't know much about and I haven't gotten the chance to play it. All I know about the mode is that it's similar to soccer. Now, the game modes are one thing, but what made a game like Overwatch so fun were the characters. I mean, man, this is Marvel we're talking about. You know the characters are going to be good here. In Marvel Rivals, there are over 35 characters that split between 3 distinct roles: Vanguard, Duelist, and Strategist. Each of these roles brings something different to the table while also acting as a gear in the overall clock that is your team comp. Starting off, we have the Vanguards. These are the tanks and juggernauts of the game, and while they're responsible for protecting the team and being impossible to kill, some of the Vanguards you can play as has combat potential that makes some of them play like pseudo-duelists. Now, compared to Overwatch, I'm not exactly a big fan of the Vanguards. Emphasis on I and am, okay? Just, God. I'm not saying they're bad, but some of them aren't as fun as the tanks in the original Overwatch. Just wanted to put that out there, so I'm not getting comments from people thinking that this role isn't good. They could surely use a few more. Even though I'm not a fan of the Vanguards in this game, whenever I do play them, I'm only usually playing 2 characters. The first is Doctor Strange, which is fun to play as. It reminds me a bit of Reinhardt with how you can shield his team, but this isn't the only thing, as his portals might be one of the best and funniest abilities in the game like this. Not only can you use the portals in a strategic way, but you can do some cheesy shit like portaling the enemy team to their deaths or keeping them in their spawn. And while his ult feels kinda weird to use at first, once you understand it, it can be used to set up some solid plays. Finally is Venom, an absolute juggernaut that if given a bunch of heals, will not fucking die. Pretty self-explanatory. Next are the Duelists. These guys are the main damage dealers of the team that can pick off weaker heroes or even go 1v1 against a tank. And out of the 3 roles in this game, I often tend to play this one the most. They all have different degrees of difficulty, with heroes like the Punisher being easy as hell to play. Meanwhile, some of them are a little more difficult, like Spider-Man, Magic, and Black Panther. So as much as I love playing this role, it is the most popular in the game, and as such, you might end up in a situation where 2 of your teammates insta-locks a duelist. Now, this isn't always bad, and there's a chance that they might be really good. Or life can throw you a giant fuck you and give you a duelist that'll go 0 and 10 and won't switch off because they think they're the main character. There's no in between, and you have a 75% chance of coming across the ladder. Besides that though, whenever I do get the chance to play this role, I normally play one of these 2 characters. The first is my main Psylocke. She's very similar to Genji, but has more mobility options, allowing her to get in and out of fights with ease. While on the surface she seems easy to play, she's one of the few characters where it does take a bit to master, but once you manage to do so, she becomes a fucking problem. Next is Squirrel Girl, who recently replaced Star-Lord as one of my favorite characters to play. She can spring high in the air, draw a giant acorn to stun enemies, and her ult is a fucking mess, but a mess you can utilize to violate all your enemies. Also, to address the obvious,
damn! Lord have mercy. The Lord is my shepherd. He know what I want. Excuse me, brother. Miss Parker! Miss Parker!
The final role in this game are the Strategists, who's responsible for healing and providing assistance to the team with buffs, or depending on who you end up playing as, can hit the enemy team with either debuffs or CC. And even though this role is highly valuable, it is a fucking nightmare to go through. When you're playing as a strategist, you're always at risk of getting jumped. You could be minding your own business, doing what you do, healing your teammates and shit, and out of nowhere, someone comes out of the woodwork to try to touch you. And I'm pretty sure something like this violates the Geneva Conventions, because if it does, I want every fucking duelist and vanguard arrested. Though what's even worse about this role is that for some godforsaken reason, the strategists are responsible for everything bad that happens in the match. Your duelist ends up going 0-15 with only 3k in damage, they're gonna blame you for it. Your vanguard is constantly diving into the enemy team and dies, they're gonna blame you for it. You end up losing the game because your duelist and or vanguard is clearly playing like shit, they're gonna blame you for it. At this point, you're better off just playing League of Legends and go as a jungler with the amount of abuse you're gonna go through. Despite this though, I still like playing as a strategist. Even though they are largely defenseless, at least their abilities are fun enough to endure the pain. Except when I've been playing nothing but strategists, and when I'm going to try to pick a duelist, someone on my team insta-locks either Spider-Man, Magic, or Iron Fist. Jesus Christ. Anyway, whenever I do get the chance to play as a strategist, I normally play one of these three characters. The first is Adam Warlock. While his healing output isn't as good as others, his passive and ult easily makes up for it as he can revive himself and others respectfully. Next is Mantis, and everything that people have said about her is true. Not only is she a great healer, she can also provide damage buffs, which makes going up against fortified teams a lot easier to deal with. And her sleeping ability is also a great source of CC whenever you want to have someone get off your ass. Finally is a toss-up between Luna Snow and Cloak and Dagger. Luna is pretty obvious, let's be real here, who wouldn't want to serve cunt while playing this character? Cloak and Dagger though reminds me so much of Mora, except for the fact that Cloak and Dagger has better healing abilities. Plus their ult is also really good for retaking the objective or trying to get people off of it. Now these characters are already strong enough as is, but there's an interesting mechanic that makes these characters even stronger. Depending on which combination of characters there are in your team, you'll trigger a team up. Team ups are a unique mechanic that offers new abilities and buffs to the characters a part of it. Kinda. It's a little weird. Let's use Luna here as an example. If someone on your team played as Luna Snow and someone else played as either Namor, Jeff, or both, then Luna would give Namor and or Jeff new abilities while Luna would get bonus healing. Another example is that if you were to play Adam Warlock and someone on your team played as Star-Lord and or Mantis, in that situation, Adam would give them access to his passive and receive a bonus on top of it. It may not seem like anything crazy at first, but team-ups can make certain team comps hell to deal with. It also encourages players to think more about team comps, though I'm not sure if that applies to everyone, but who knows. All I know is that it's a great addition. And when you put like all this stuff together, the team up mechanics, the heroes, the abilities that they have, and so much more, putting all of this shit in practice, it ends up being, a really fun experience. Everything about Marvel Rivals is not only accessible to new players, it also gives Overwatch fans a familiar experience while doing its own thing. A lot of this game's unique charm is making you feel like you're in a Marvel comic, and they achieve this by including destructible environments throughout each and every map available. At first, it might seem like a bad idea, especially if debris is all over the damn place. Then when you're in a match, it doesn't actually disrupt anything, and any part of the map that's destroyed is restored after a while. Then, there's the characters. They're all fun and unique to play as, but there's also an incentive to master them with this game's proficiency system. When playing one particular character and completing missions like getting a certain amount of damage, you'll get rewards to show off to others how proficient you are as that hero. There's 5 ranks overall, with Lord being the highest and giving you this really cool character portrait. Another thing about the characters in this game is that they aren't really broken to the point where there's little to no counterplay when going up against them. They all have some sort of counter to them, whether it be because of how much health they have or how their abilities work. But it doesn't negate the fact that some of them are just straight up annoying to go up against. Oh, and by the way, if you play Spider-Man, Black Panther, Magic, Winter Soldier, Iron Fist, Iron Man, and Jeff, you can all eat a bag of shriveled up dicks, especially if you play Spider-Man and Jeff. Y'all two bitches in particular are annoying as hell to deal with. Even though this game is really good, like I'm talking good enough to possibly beat out Overwatch 2, there are some issues with this game. Some of these issues range from being, not that bad, to, what the fuck were they thinking? But before we talk about that, let me share at least one more positive thing about this game, and I promise you, you and your wallet is going to be very happy to hear this. In the climate where it feels like we're getting nickeled and dined for everything in a video game, Marvel Rivals is one of the rare few games that isn't trying to rob you every time you boot it up. The big thing to understand is that almost everything in this game can be earned by simply playing it. Of course, it's not to an extreme degree, but it's enough to where you don't have to keep your debit card by your side at all times. This game has 3 different currencies that are used for different things, being latice, chrono tokens, and units. The latice is sort of this game's premium currency used to buy the battle pass and exclusive items. It can also be used to exchange for another currency, units. This allows players to buy the cosmetic skins in the game and can be earned by unlocking certain achievements or completing special missions. And finally are the chrono tokens, which are more associated with the battle pass and are used to unlock rewards from it. Now, I don't think I have to explain how the battle pass works since that shit is everywhere. But unlike the other battle passes where they offer free rewards that just suck, the free rewards in this game are just as good as the paid version. Every couple of tiers unlocks free skins that range from looking pretty simple to looking just as badass as the ones you would get on the paid tier. And alongside the latice and units you can get, there's sprays and emotes, which some of them aren't half bad. The only issue with this game's battle pass is that it's slow as hell to progress through. You need a certain amount of chrono tokens before you're going to unlock a page, and even though getting to that initial amount isn't hard, the later pages start to get more and more expensive. But you know what? That might be a good thing, especially considering that with other battle passes, you had to grind them bitches out, especially in a game like Fortnite. Plus, kids are playing this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if that battle pass limit was put there to prevent them from mindlessly playing this game. Maybe. Despite the small issues with the battle pass, this shit warms my heart to see a game that isn't trying to suck the soul out of my wallet, and I hope it sets a precedent for companies to, well, I don't know, stop adding predatory shit into your game just to make me go and buy some microtransactions. Again, hopefully that happens. As for some of the negative aspects of this game, yeah, that one might be a little difficult. When I was looking through Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube about problems with Marvel Rivals, most of them had felt pretty subjective and all over the place. There are some issues I agree with, like how there's a lack of map variety and the balance of certain characters. But then I see shit that mostly boils down to people complaining about something that they went through and making that seem like it's a big issue with the game. Like, I've seen someone complain about going up against a team with 3 strategists and someone complaining about bronze and silver ranks in competitive. But the one issue I've seen everyone talk about is the goddamn performance. I can't say much for how it is on console, but if you're playing on PC, you might have come across one of these issues. Now, to my knowledge, some of these performance issues have either been fixed or there's something you can do to mitigate them. That 99% bug/glitch is the easiest, as you just have to move the game's files onto an SSD. Then there's the frame drops, which can be mitigated by changing some of the settings and or using the NVIDIA/AMD app to further optimize it. Again, this only mitigates the issue, but at least you won't be dropping from a smooth 60 frames per second to a goddamn slideshow. But when it comes down to the game crashing, now that's a whole nother story. I don't know the exact specifics, but at one point while recording, my GPU crashed. I don't know how the hell it happened, but I know I almost had a panic attack because I thought I was gonna have to get a whole new GPU. Have you seen the prices on these bitches? Like, yeah, okay, they're steadily dropping down in price, but with the way everything is going in our world currently and everything is burning up with flames and just going to shit, I would not be surprised if you want to get like the new 50 series NVIDIA graphics card and shit, and you end up having to take out a loan to buy it. Overall, I'm just glad I didn't have to buy a new GPU, but considering the fact that sometimes shit just don't go my way, I wouldn't be surprised if one day my GPU ends up freaking dying and I'm gonna have to buy a new one. And if that day ever comes, I'm just gonna cry. I'm just gonna fucking cry. God damn it. God, this game is so much fun. When I first played Overwatch in 2019, I quickly understood why so many people liked it. The best way I could describe it was that it was fun yet chaotic as hell, because no matter what game mode you played, something was bound to happen that'll make you laugh your ass off, whether that be bumping people off the map or doing an ult and seeing everyone run around like chickens with their heads cut off. And although it was annoying dealing with teammates that were sweaty or just sticks, they were somewhat few and far in between. Even then, it was better to play with friends to somewhat mitigate that. But when I played Overwatch 2 during the week it was released, that feeling wasn't there anymore. It felt like Blizzard took this game, removed all of its vital organs, and shipped it to us as if it was something new. And with all the issues I've mentioned in the beginning of the video, it would eventually lead to me dropping the game and eventually going back to League of Legends. So, when Marvel Rivals was announced, I was cautiously optimistic about it, and when I finally found the time to play it, I felt that same energy that the first Overwatch gave me and more. You could tell just how passionate the developers were with this game. Every aspect of it, including the hell that is competitive, had this energy about it that just made you hyped to get into the next game. And despite there being moments that almost definitely pissed you off, those moments only last for a couple of seconds before moving on to the next. Boy, don't get me started with everything else. There's Easter eggs in every crevice of this game that references something about a particular character or Marvel's history as a whole, from the funny voice lines to the skins being based on what was seen in the MCU or referencing something from that character's origin. Of course, this game isn't perfect, especially with how it runs on PC, but beyond that, I hope that this game continues to be successful into the future, because if there was any free-to-play game that deserves it, it's definitely this game. And if you want to play this game for yourself, it is currently available on all modern platforms. So you have PC, make sure to check out the spec requirements just to make sure that you got all the parts needed to be able to play the game. But if you do play on older consoles like Xbox One and PS4, I'm sorry man, but you're pretty much shit out of luck. Ugh. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching till the end of the video. Also, Happy New Year's! Okay, yeah, I know I'm severely late, and let's also talk about the elephant in the room here. 2024 was something, to say the least. In a lot of ways, that year was just 2023, but worse. It even got to the point where I was basically told by everybody, including life itself, to sit my ass down or I'm gonna pop like a balloon. Luckily, I'm still in one piece, and I've also been kind of finding this like balance between, you know, doing content, doing some shit for school and stuff, and doing everything else so I can avoid getting burnt out. And funny enough, speaking of, you know, burnout and shit, that's actually a part of one of my, you know, resolutions for this year. My big thing for this year is that I'm hoping to be more consistent with my uploads so that you guys can get more content. But as much as I want to go back to how it was when I first started, which I was releasing the video every 2 to 3 weeks, I've come to understand recently that it's not going to work out for me, especially with how busy I've been recently, the length of some of these games, and the fact that I just like to yap a lot with these videos. But on that note too, I'm also thinking about trying out some smaller videos, but I just need to figure out, you know, the logistics behind it, as well as build the courage up to actually do them. Yeah, gotta love anxiety, baby. Yeah. And for everyone who has been waiting patiently throughout this content drought, if you want to call it that, I can't help but continue to thank you guys so much for y'all continued support. It means the world knowing that no matter how long it takes for me to make these videos, and no matter what's going on that's causing me to, you know, not be able to make them, I still have people out there who is waiting to watch these videos. It also makes me a little anxious, but that's my anxiety talking. Just now, in terms of what's next, it isn't going to be Trials and Tribulations. That video is currently on the back burner while I try to edit and rewrite parts of that script. Now, I can tell you right now, that video might end up being a behemoth. So yeah, I'm going to need some time to prepare myself. So until that is ready, we're going to be taking a couple of detours of sorts. And then next time I see you guys, we'll be taking our first detour covering the last 2 Trauma Center games. God, I wish they made more of these. Like always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. Hit the little bell notification so you guys know when the next video is going to be coming out. And also make sure to look out for a community post that's going to be made maybe a couple minutes or an hour or two after this video releases. It has some information about streaming and what's going to be going on for this year. So yeah, and I think you guys are also going to like the announcement I'm going to be making for that. And make sure to stay safe, hydrate, bundle up because it's getting very, very cold out there. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!